for establishing the storage facility, another for the amalgamation of the pore space, and the establishment of the financial assurance. All 9 cases were heard at a public hearing over the course of 3 days, June 11th through 13th, 2024. There was a lot of overlap in the matters, so Richard Suggs, the geology manager for the Oil and Gas Division, will be presenting the 9 matters in his slides. Our recommendation will be to act on the 9 orders in 3 different motions, 1 action for each applicant and individual storage facility, approving the storage facility order, the amalgamation order, and a financial assurance order for each of the applicants. On the screen, you'll see the 14. Are we there?
Fine.
Oh, I got you. If we don't get to it, it's okay. Richard will go through it in his presentation, but on the screen, it's actually near the end, but there's 14 permit requirements that must be met per North Dakota Century Code. Those are them. So these are the 14 requirements per North Dakota Century Code, and Richard will speak to these throughout his slides. With that, I'll turn it over to Richard to present the technical aspect, the opposition, and the permit requirements for each of these 9 orders and 3 motions.
Richard, welcome. Thank you. Before you, I guess, right now is the location map for the 3 storage facilities under consideration, all of which are located in west central North Dakota near the junction of counties. The SCS1, they're all proposed by Summit Carbon Solutions. The SCS1 is Summit Carbon Storage number 1. It's a TV land gain storage facility, and it's proposed to include approximately 29,445 acres. The SCS2 BK Fisher facility is proposed to include approximately 28,845 acres, and the SCS3 KJ Hens facility is proposed to include approximately 31,239 acres. Carbon dioxide is proposed to be captured at 57 facilities. They're all ethanol facilities located through Iowa, Minnesota, Nebraska, South Dakota, and 1 ethanol facility, the Carlson ethanol facility located in eastern North Dakota. Delivered to the 3 storage facilities through the Midwest Carbon Express pipeline, the North Dakota portion of which the Public Service Commission recently approved as a member. In each case, the applicants SCS1, SCS2, and SCS3 have met all the Century and administrative code requirements for the permitting of carbon dioxide storage facilities. And as per the policy set forth by the legislature in Century Code 382201, geologic storage of carbon dioxide is in the public interest. You can just flip to the next slide.
Come on.
So as part of preparing the storage facility application in Summit through the ERC, performed geologic characterization on Broom Creek Formation as proposed, as the proposed injection zone identified on the slide as by the red arrow, which is located about 3,500 feet below ground level. They also characterized the overlying Spearfish and Opeachy formations as the upper confining zone and the underlying Amsden formation. They used these geologic characterizations to construct geologic models of said formations and ran numerical simulations on those models to predict the results of the carbon dioxide injection facilities. As a result of those characterizations and modeling efforts, they defined the horizontal and vertical boundaries of the storage reservoirs and determined that the proposed Broom Creek injection zone was both suitable and feasible for carbon dioxide injection. And that the confining zones were of sufficient quality to prevent carbon dioxide from escaping the storage reservoir. We agree with these assessments. Through evaluation of 3D seismic over the storage facility, there were indications of some basement connected faults in the area, right in the storage facility. But through the same 3D seismic also confirmed that the vertical extent of those faults cuts off in the inner lake about 3,000 feet below the Broom Creek, and that with evaluating the low frequency of seismic events that happen in North Dakota, support the conclusion that the observed faults are not active and don't cut through the confining zones or the injection zone. Fracture analysis performed on core samples and borehole image logs also concluded that there was some minor fracturing in some of the formations, but also concluded that the fractures were filled with either precipitate minerals and the fractures lacked sufficient permeability or vertical extent to act as fluid migration pathways. An evaluation of existing wellbores, 3D seismic and fracture analysis and interpretation logs, along with water samples collected at the Broom Creek, again, the red arrow in the column above, and the Indian Cara, the gray arrow listed on the slide as well, support the conclusion that no migration pathways currently exist between the Broom Creek and overlying formations. Thus, lacking those pathways, storage of carbon dioxide in the Creek Formation will not adversely affect surface waters or formations containing fresh waters. The deepest freshwater zone there, also on the slide, is indicated by the blue arrow with the Fox Hills Formation, approximately 1,500 feet. Numerical simulation and geologic modeling of the injection of carbon dioxide into the storage reservoir indicated that carbon dioxide could be safely and effectively stored, and that the injected stream would not compromise the integrity of the storage reservoir. The proposed testing and monitoring plan is determined to be sufficient to assess the location and migration of carbon dioxide in the subsurface. The geologic characterizations that were done, along with the proposed testing and monitoring plan, support a conclusion that the carbon dioxide storage facility constructed and operated as proposed in these applications will not endanger human health or unduly endanger the environment. Review of published information and geologic evaluation of those same formations, both of the injection zone formations as well as formations above and below the proposed reservoir, indicate no commercially viable minerals located within this area. And while coal is present in the near surface, no existing mines have plans to mine coal within the storage facility areas during the project's operational period. I will note, should mineral resources be identified in the future, the presence of the storage facility does not preclude the drilling of vertical or horizontal wells for extraction purposes. Next slide, please. So starting with paragraph 35 in the findings portion of the storage facility order, the concerns expressed through written comments are summarized, and where relevant to the cases being heard and within the jurisdiction of the commission, those concerns have been addressed throughout the findings of the order. For this discussion, the written comments have been grouped into three rough categories as noted on the slide. 8 submissions came in, included concerns that we can think of as general opposition, and expressed concerns including Summit having a potentially bad reputation with landowners and a lack of experience building pipelines or injection wells, concerns regarding continued reliance on the oil and gas industry, the safety of carbon dioxide capture, transport, and storage technologies, potential inequity in the proportion of tax credits allocated to storage, potential negative impacts to land, environment, or minerals. Commenters assert that the carbon capture and storage technology is still evolving, it's unproven, and the carbon sequestration is underregulated, and also that the amalgamation law is unconstitutional. Decisions on these cases should wait until the court determines constitutionality. There were 12 submissions from mineral owners expressing concerns that there would be negative impacts to their mineral rights, property interests. Concerns regarding someone was claiming that minerals don't exist in the pore space or are of such little value as to not warrant compensation. Summit must be required to negotiate with mineral owners for a fair price or any consequential impacts to their mineral interest. We also received 4 submissions in support of one or more of the storage facilities, specifically one set of reporting comments for the TBA Langang storage facility, as well as comments for all of them that included the project will sustain and enhance the agriculture industry, provide jobs and tax revenues for the county and state, provide supplemental income to farmers and ranchers, and be a benefit to economic development, as well as some favorable comments from parties about their experiences working. So, with respect to the appearances, at the hearing, 11 surface landowner interveners were represented by counsel in opposition to the applications. One of which was Kurt Swenson, who testified at the hearing representing the Swenson Living Trust. Mr. Swenson testified that he is not against the applicant Summit or proposed storage facilities, but he does disagree with the use of taxpayer funds to reward their unconstitutional taking of private property. Mr. Swenson followed that statement, those initial statements, by expressing several reasons why they felt that the commission should consider denying the applications, indicating that the North Dakota Constitution law is a taking of private property, felt that Summit had made a good faith effort to get his consent for force-based use, not believe that Summit proposed storage facilities are accomplishing the policies and goals under NDCC Chapter 3822. He claimed to have been severely prejudiced by the state's lack of enforcement of North Dakota rules of procedure, and that the storage facility boundaries are arbitrary and inaccurate. Force space could be harmed or damaged, and that Summit also hadn't provided vapor release models. Feels that information would be necessary to have before making a determination that the project could endanger human health. There was also one appearance in support, Mr. Kenneth Hentz. Mr. Hentz testified that approving the storage facilities would provide new industry for North Dakota, provide supplemental income for farmers and ranchers, and new tax dollars for the county. Hentz explained that he has worked with Summit since 2021, and their experiences have been good and open. I just want to reiterate at this point that all of the concerns and issues addressed by the written comments and the testimony at the hearing were addressed throughout the orders and the findings of the orders.
Richard, do you know across the 3 storage areas how many landowners there are in total?
I'd want to say the testimony included that Summit had worked with over 450 individual landowners. That does include acreage outside of the storage facilities. So I don't have the exact number within the individual ones, but over 450 landowners in and around the area.
As part of the hearing, was there, or even currently now, the percentage of people of surface owners who, defined by North Dakota state law, actually have the rights to the pore space and therefore have the opportunity to economically benefit from that storage? Was there the votes that were taken by the landowners in favor of the storage area consideration at all as part of the hearing?
There wouldn't have been a vote per se, but if you look at...
Well, not a vote there, but the people that voted to say yes to accepting the payments for storage.
So up on the screen right now is the number of pore space leases that have been signed for each of the individual storage facilities. So pore space owners that have consented to having storage on their property.
So that's 89%, 92%, some change, and almost 97%, huh?
For some carbon storage 1, 2, and 3 respectively.
Okay.
So with respect to amalgamation and those percentages, the statutory requirement for permitting of a geologic storage facility in North Dakota for 382208 is at least 60% of the storage reservoir pore space. As you can see, we're in the 90s, essentially, or almost at the 90s in all 3 of them. Per North Dakota Century Code 382210, if a storage operator does not obtain the consent of all persons who own the storage reservoir pore space, the commission may require that the pore space owned by non-consenting owners be included in the storage facility and subject to geologic storage. That is the term we use, amalgamation. That's what the 382210 is titled.
With just compensation?
Correct. With equitable compensation. With the high percentage of consenting pore space and leasehold, and Summit's testimony at the hearing that through negotiations with pore space owners, they had increased their royalty payments, royalty payment rate up 50% from their initial starting point. Their addition of the no surface facilities clauses and favored nations clauses to the pore space leases that they were offering. It was concluded that Summit had made good faith efforts to get consent of all pore space owners for the 3 storage facilities.
And Richard, can you explain how the favored nations clause works?
So the favored nation clause effectively requires that whoever negotiates the best lease agreement, the best royalty rates, that best rate that they negotiate gets applied to all the storage owners within the facility. So whoever gets the best rate, they all get the best rate.
So you don't need to hire a lawyer because you get the best rate.
As long as someone
As long as
negotiates.
somebody else in your ruling area is getting the best rate, you get the same thing.
Correct. It was also concluded that the combination of the one-phase formula, which was proposed by Summit and based on surface acres, with the inclusion of the favored nations clause and the provision in the storage agreement indicating that non-leased owners would be treated and thus compensated as if they were subject to the pore space lease, that would ensure equitable compensation for all pore space owners, both consenting and non-consenting.
I have a question for Nathan and Mark. So this, if you have someone who does not consent inside of a pooling area for an oil and gas lease, do they receive the same price and payments as everybody else in the pooling area?
It's a little different in North Dakota in oil and gas. If you don't lease, so the operator can assign you the acre weighted average in the space or 16% at the operator discretion. It's a little bit different, but
So the CO2 is a better deal than oil and gas because you always get the highest. But it's still,
If there's a favored nations clause in there, it really depends on whether that's in the lease agreement.
There's a question that was raised or it was brought up in opposition and talked about, summarize it, competent driller, is, do we know who would be the drilling operator? Do we know who the engineer is? I mean, we do a lot of this injection work in North Dakota, but along these lines, do we have any idea who is gonna be hired or would do the work?
At the time of the application, no information as far as who their contractors were is supplied.
Okay,
At the time when they submit their conversion or their permits for the Class 6 wells, we'll know a little bit more along those lines. But functionally, who they're allowed to contract with isn't something that we control.
great.
but the department's got experience because we've had numerous successful Class 6 wells drilled in North Dakota in recent history.
Correct. And in all likelihood, as the EERC was contracted to develop the storage applications, there's a high likelihood they would be included in consulting.
Thank you.
And there are monitoring wells that are also going to be established.
So each storage facility, if you look at the map in your packet there, each storage facility is going to include 2 injection wells on the same pad, and at least one already drilled stratigraphic test well that will be converted to one.
Okay.
They will also have shallow surface water monitoring of the Fox Hills, as well as soil stations monitoring for CO2 at each facility.
How often will they be monitored, pressure wise? How often will the pressure be monitored in the actual storage facility itself?
Effectively continuously.
Okay.
The wells themselves will be equipped with gauges, and they will be continually monitoring that as they and the monitoring wells will also have pressure, just pressure gauges and something.
Right, and that's gonna be monitored continuously or checked on a daily basis or something?
It'll be monitored by their systems continuously, and we will have inspectors at least at bare minimum monthly to also inspect the facilities.
But the monitoring is constant, done remotely, so if there was a problem, it'd be noted immediately. It wouldn't take that 1 month to get out there.
Correct. The applicant will have people monitoring those systems. They will report to the commission should anything be amiss, and will begin to evaluate it and shut things down as needed. So,
There's requirements in the order that.
correct. There's permit requirements that are the conditions of approval per 7 point. Right here. For 430501 7.3, there's required conditions of approval for all storage facilities. and they would include requirements for monitoring as well.
And the department, has established and put these into practice because you've been working, monitoring wells that were put in Blue Flint and Red Trail. And is there anything we've learned from those two that we learned that are changed in this one, or is the procedures were put in place for the wells we've already permitted all working well?
I think we're all, I don't think there's any major changes between what's been proposed on other facilities and what's being proposed here. There might be slight differences between what technology they intend to use and timeframes. Functionally, we're all measuring pressures and temperatures, and there's going to be passive seismic arrays and everything. Effectively, they're covering all the requirements for the statutes and for the industry.
Great, thank you.
So with each one of these orders, they address each storage facility,
Yes.
correct?
So there's three
Because I'm
orders.
reading through, yeah.
3 orders per storage facility, one for the storage facility itself, including that, one for the amalgamation of the lands in the storage facility, and the third for the financial assurance requirements that we're requiring.
Is that what you're gonna cover next?
Yep.
The financial?
Yep, financial assurance is next up. So regarding financial assurance orders that you're going to be asked to approve for each storage facility, the operator is required to cover with their financial assurance the cost of plugging the 2 injection wells. And that requirement is 1.166 million, which covers both wells. Their applicant is currently proposing to cover that with surety bonds. The numbers up on the screen for post-injection site care. This estimate includes the cost for reclaiming the injection pad, as well as plugging and reclaiming the monitoring well sites. It also includes abandonment of the flow line, abandonment of the air and groundwater monitoring stations, as well as 2 cycles of seismic acquisition that happen post-injection phase. And the totals for all those 3 facilities are up on the slide. Those are the numbers that we're doing here. The applicant is also proposing to cover those totals with surety bonds. And then lastly, the emergency and remedial response financial assurance is anticipated to be provided by pollution liability insurance policies. The estimated value on the screen there, which are in $13 to $14 million ranges, include estimates of the costs for evaluating and remediating a scenario with full wellbore failure on an injection well that would have caused a loss of containment and a significant volume of CO2 or brine to move to the surface and potentially dangerous USDW. So those numbers would include the full valuation and reclamation situations.
Like any word and nobody's typing it.
But
I want to take tomorrow off.
so a few discussion items.
That's my plan.
Please note the orders in front of you, the storage facility orders, they do not make a determination regarding whether the proposed storage facilities contribute to the energy and agricultural production economy in North Dakota. But do require a subsequent hearing to be held to make this determination and potentially set any per ton storage fees for these storage facilities. We'll note that prior to docketing such a hearing, the DMR would need some guidance from the commission regarding what factors they wish us to consider making that determination. With the amalgamation order that you're being asked to sign, we ask that that order includes a request to approve the director or to provide the director authority to issue a director's order to set the effective date for the amalgamation. We would issue that director's order only after receiving an affidavit affirming that agreements on state land have been executed. At this time, we understand there's agreement in principle, but it hasn't gone through the land board. I will also note that for the sake of organizing the information in the storage facility orders, several subsections and headings were included that you don't see in a lot of commission orders. These were added, again, to help organize things. One of these subsections is titled procedural history. The section was included due to the volume and complexity of various filings in these cases, and includes a summary of those filings and motions made by all the parties in the cases. Within this procedural history section, paragraph 27 of the storage facility order addresses the hearing officer's denial of the intervener's motion to continue and expedite discovery. The facts noted as relevant to that denial include a summary of various open records requests filed by the interveners and the interveners counsel. The first of which was filed as early as June of 2023, nearly a year prior to the hearing. The DMR provided responses to each of those requests for records, and at no point prior to the hearing were we made aware of concerns that the interveners had not received the requested information. I will note, after being made aware of those concerns at the hearing, the DMR reviewed its responses to those requests. It did discover at least that the response to the May 15th records request had a typo. We had referenced the September 21st response, which was incorrect, and it should have read August of 23. So typo in one of our responses. Also within the procedural history of the storage facility order, paragraph 31 includes a summary of a series of post-hearing motions and briefs that were filed by the interveners counsel. And after the closing of which happened to come in after the closing of the record of the consolidated matters, which was June 24th of 2024. And a finding that they are not part of the official record in the case. Also, it is worth noting here that the largest single landowner in any of these proposed storage facilities holds less than 6%. This isn't like some of the other facilities where there was a coal mine that had 60% of the acreage in the storage facility. These are all private acres. So the largest single landowner owns 66%, less than 6% of the storage facility acreage. And when calculating across all three storage facilities, Summit has reached greater than 92% sign-on across all three projects. The aforementioned intervener landowners represent approximately 1.4% of the total acreage in all three facilities. If we consider all of the lands that they're representing, not just the lands within the facility, that number still stays less than 2%. Also, the approval of these three proposed storage facilities adds an additional 17.6 million tons of annual capacity injection of CO2 in the state. The current approved total capacity is 14.7 million tons. So approval of these applications more than double what our current capacity is. I think with that, I'll turn it over to Nathan for the last slide.
Again, Richard went through a lot of the permit requirements, but, as outlined in his presentation, Summit Carbon Solutions 1, 2, and 3 have met the requirements per North Dakota Century Code and North Dakota Administrative Code for permitting of carbon dioxide storage facilities, and the DMR recommends approval of all landowners.
There would be nothing that, and they met all the requirements, so there's nothing that would preclude them from not getting approved. Based on that, based on the information,
I'll second that. I have one follow-up question. I was curious, this tonnage, what amount for the existing pipeline that's been going up to bringing this up to Canada for 10, 20 years, what amount are they moving a day?
A day, I can't tell you.
Or, I mean, I'm sorry, annually, relative to the same thing, apple to apple comparison.
I do have a number that I can give you, 40 million metric tons of CO2 since 2000.
Okay, across that whole time.
Across that time frame. I do believe it fluctuates based on the CO2 they want the waiver field in Canada. So I don't have daily numbers.
I was just curious.
Approximately 2 million metric tons a year.
Yeah, every year.
20 plus years.
So it has been 20 years, right? I bet that. Yeah. Okay.
I have a motion and a second. Any additional questions or comments?
Just a point of clarification, Governor, is this motion and second to cover all landowners?
oh, yes. All three that we outlined.
Yeah, that's as I understood it as well.
Okay, we'll call for the vote.
Commissioner?
Yes.
Attorney General?
Yes.
Governor?
Yes. Motion carries. Thank you, Richard. What's the time frame for the next hearing related to the pricing of storage that you described?
Oh, hasn't been contemplated yet. We need a little bit of guidance, as I mentioned, with the commission in order to determine what parameters we should be basing it on and directing the applicant to provide. That would take that here in time. I would assume though that they'd like to act on that in 3 to 6 months.
Great, thank you. Anything else, Mark, David?
Yeah, we have one more.
One more order, all right, dive back in.
It's a reconsideration order, maybe before we were here,